Hey, and welcome, guys. Today on the bench we have the Maurader from Buck Rogers. Now this is from the Draconian Empire, kind of their fighter if you've watched the old series. This kit obviously is an old kit from Monogram. The copyright date on the model was 1979, so about 42 years from the time of this video and making of this video. As you can see, the box is kind of beat up. I found it on eBay. Actually, it has been taped together, but all the parts are there. I've inventoried the parts. All the parts are intact. They're there. I have the windshield, which has some, looks like it has some, I don't know if you can make it out, but there's some discolorization in it. So I'm not sure how I'm going to proceed with that. I mean, it's not terrible. I think it's usable. It's just not, it's far from being perfect. There are some scratches and marks on it too. But other than that, all the parts are there and look to be in good shape. So just a quick look. Like I said, I've already opened up the box, obviously. The box had been opened previously, but I've detached all the parts, just kind of take an inventory of them and make sure, see what, if any things I was going to need to do. But everything looks to be in pretty good shape. So now with this kit, I'm going to be following closely Interstellar Modeler's build that he did not too long ago of the same kit. I've been talking to him and he's given me permission to include some of the pictures of his build because this kit, though it's fairly nice looking, you could build it without doing any modifications and I'm sure it looked fine. But there's a lot of detailing that he added that I guess is more like the studio model. So I'm going to be closely following that. I'm sure it won't be exactly like his. I'll probably make it my own. I do have a few ideas that I would like to try. But I did contact him, and he also sent me his template for the fins for the turrets. Now the turrets, kind of in a way, let me see if I can find, where they only have these 4 fins, and on the studio model it actually has, I guess, 8. There's 4 more, so he's included his template of the ones that he designed to fit around the turrets. He also has some more detailing for some fins that go up in the front of the ship. He did some detailing on these flat spaces on the wings here, so I'll be kind of closely following that, and but at the same time I'll make it a little bit my own. I think one thing I may try to do is, I think that's 2 sections. You have these very small gun barrels here, and they're just, I think I might be able to kind of cut that away and maybe put some brass tubing, give it a little bit more substantial barrel in there, maybe even do some lighting with it, some kind of flashing lighting for the guns. There's also, I believe, which I wasn't even aware of, you have this part which goes on the, I guess this is a gun. It goes on the bottom of the ship right here. I guess that's a 3rd gun that I really didn't know much about. But I think I could also kind of do some tubing in there. Just an idea that I may go that way. We'll see how that turns out. May not. I would like to do some lighting. I don't know how much work on the cockpit I'm going to do on it. Since that windshield is the way it is, I don't think it's very visible. Maybe there's some kind of vague lighting in there to where it illuminates red or something like that. Open up these, you have the engine part, open these up, do some lighting in there, and that would be about it, other than maybe trying to light those guns. But I'm not going to commit to that right at the moment. So it looks like I have a little bit of a bend right there. It has these weird circular tabs, I guess, on a lot of the parts. I'll keep them there. It's probably good for gluing. It gives it something to glue onto and then sand it off after it's glued. So, I don't think that's the way it's supposed to look. It doesn't look like that on the box art anyway. So, that's strange. But I'm going to leave it on there until after I get it nice and glued. So anyway, that's the plan at the moment, and we'll see how it goes. as you can see, I drilled out and replaced the guns with some brass tubing. I've installed a fiber optic in there. There's a little bit left over there, so I clip that off. Once it's painted, I'll clip that off so we'll be able to see that. You can see some of the detailing I've now started to do on the top and bottom. Now on the top, this was all kind of scratch built with this styrene strips and sheet. But on the bottom, I decided I would just print out some greeblies. Now, these little greeblies here and here are things I found on Thingiverse. If you just search greeblies, you'll find all kinds of little interesting shapes, and I thought these went well for right here. Now these are actually hood scoops, so if you search hood scoops, there's also all kind of hood scoops. I know it's not canon, but this is the bottom of the ship, and I thought this would save some time and an easy way to give some nice detail. I think it'll look pretty cool once it's all painted up. And of course I have a little greebly here that I cut and printed out and cut to shape to give some more detail on the bottom. I may add a little bit more with some styrene to detail the bottom up a little bit. We still have some kind of plain spaces throughout the ship, but I think that's going to look pretty good once we get that all painted up. I like the way the brass barrel comes out. It's come out, and I still have to put the fiber optic for that. So everything's looking pretty good. I've drilled out my engine as much as possible without hopefully damaging those too much, and of course that will fit right in here. There's a little bit of a gap, so I'm going to have to kind of pinch this down when I go to paint it. So we're going to finish getting that detailing, and then I'll have to seal up my turrets. Now I took the turret the other side that doesn't have the weapon, and you have a little locating tab right here. So I located or placed it against the ship and drilled a hole for my fiber optic to go through, and that way my hole is lined up. So I just attached that, then drilled a hole, and that way it's lined up for my fiber optic to go through. Plenty of room for all that. So I'm just going to work on doing a little bit more detailing, and we'll take a look at it after that. Okay, so here you can see I've attached my connecting rod to the bottom of the ship, and I have some 2-part epoxy holding that into place, and you can also see I've run my wiring up through the ship. I have 2 sets of wires. One's going to be running to the fiber optics because that's going to be a strobing effect for the cannons, and then the other wires will be running to the engine and also to the cockpit. Now on the cockpit, I'm not going to try to detail the cockpit. I've taken the canopy here and I've lightly sanded the inside to diffuse the light. There'll be a light inside just to kind of illuminate the canopy here, but you won't actually be able to see in. So I'll have as you can see here in the cockpit, I've attached the seat. I'll probably just have some kind of light in here, just kind of illuminate this area, maybe have just a glowing red effect. Now I noticed on the, I guess the studio model, this section up here is open, and on this model it's closed. So as you can see, I've already started opening that up, and I think it's just a matter of sanding away a little material from this edge right here, and I'm just taking this 3-sided file and cleaning that out, and I think that will look fine once I open up this other side. Now it's kind of opening on this section right here. I don't know if you can see it, so it might get a little bit of the bleed through, some light glowing there, and to me that's fine if it's a little glowing effect. This will be something added to it. So, but I think that will help make that look a little bit better. As far as the actual canopy, this part on the studio model is not glassed so far down, so I've trimmed some pieces that I'll glue in place. Once I glue the canopy in place into the cockpit, I'll have this styrene right here, and I'll go something like that, and then I'll probably frame it out with a little strip styrene. I've got my turrets all sealed, and they're ready to go, ready to be connected. There was just a little bit they sealed pretty well, a little bit of light sanding. I removed those little round things that were at the end once I had it all glued together. So pretty pleased how that's coming along. And just a matter of getting all this put together right now. I'm still working on the engine. I just took the housing for the nozzles and light blocked it. It's drying right now. There's some black inside that, so that's good to go. And once I get more of that done, we'll come back and look at that. All right, been working on the cockpit here. As you can see, I've been adding in some detail. I think this looks a whole lot better than having that red piece come all the way down here. Use some sheet styrene and some strip styrene to kind of fill in and frame out these areas. Of course, I opened up this small vent right here. Use a little Tamiya putty to fill in the gap and sand that down. It was a little bit of work to get all that done. There'll probably be a little bit more cleanup once I prime it. Kind of see how all that turned out, but I'm pretty pleased with kind of how that's looking. I think that's a much more aggressive, realistic look. I think that red came all the way down, kind of made it look toyish, so I'm very pleased with that. I've light blocked the inside of where my engine nozzles are. I first did black and then did some chrome paint. I took a piece of styrene and cut it to shape, and that's going to hold a yellow 3mm LED, and I'll just insert in there, and that will light our nozzles. Now once I paint it, I think I'll just add some clear parts glue in there, and that way it'll illuminate that and should bring our light to the end of those nozzles. So everything's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to I may prime this separate. So when I go, I'm sure there'll be some cleanup. I want to prime it. First I have to mask off these canopy here, the windscreens, and I want to prime it and see where that's at before I attach it, because once I attach it, it's going to be a lot harder to try to sand these areas right here. So, but I'm getting close to sealing it up, and I have all my kind of sub-assemblies done, and it's just a matter of getting it put together and getting painted now. Okay, I'm ready to attach my upper and lower parts of the ship. I have my wiring from my engine and my cockpit mixed together, and that's going to go on these two wires right here. I already have my wire for my weapons. I've attached the turrets to the upper part of the ship and have the fiber optics running through. I just have to trim those down a little bit, and they'll be sliding into my little fiber optic line right here. And again, that'll have a controller in the base which will control the strobing effect. So now I just need to glue this part onto there, and I think the only other part is this kind of cowling that goes over the engine nozzles. I'll attach that later. So just getting ready to put this together, and we'll be ready for painting. Alright, I have my ship all put together now. As you can see, I did some priming on the top section before I connected it, just kind of check out some of the seams. I did have to kind of add some detail and a little bit of strip here. I'd sanded it down a little too much, so to make it look like this side, I had to do another thin strip. Other than that, I thought it came out pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with how that blends in. Glued the body together. I still have a little bit of work cleaning up to do, especially on this back section right here. There's a little bit of gap in the body right here that I had to put some putty in. And other than that, goes together pretty nice. You do get a little bit of a seam line right here, which I may try to work on a little bit where the body comes together. The front part glues together pretty nicely. I don't think you have to worry about too much seams in there. So I'm going to work on that and do a primer coat and kind of see where we're at with the details. Alright, as you can see here, I have a primer on, and I also did some pre-shading with some black primer, and just getting ready to do my primary coats on it. Now my plan is to do like a two-part coat on this. Looked at a lot of reference pictures. The color is kind of all over the place. To me, on screen it looks more of a reddish brown color, but I've seen browns, oranges, red brown, stuff like that nature. I think what I'm going to try first is this reddish brown color. This is called Glory Red from Game Air from Vallejo. Doing that as a kind of a base coat, and then going over with this orange red from model color from Vallejo to kind of highlight the areas. So that's kind of the plan. It'll give us some depth and color. Hopefully that'll turn out, but we'll see how that works out. So first of all, I'm going to do a base coat of this Glory Red. All right, as you can see here, I have my base coat on, and I think it turned out pretty well. I'm very happy with the orangish brown color that I achieved. I first did a coat with this glory red. Now that came out very red, but the pre-shading helped a lot. It gave it a nice shade, some tones, some variance in the color, and I was kind of pretty happy with the way that looked by itself, but I really wanted that orange color, so next I went on with this orange red, and I had that diluted with some of this acrylic thinner and sprayed it over and tried not to go super heavy, but still get that orange color. There's some color variations in some places. That red kind of barely shows through. The pre-shading still kind of shows through on some of the spots. So really happy with how that came out. That was pretty close to what I was wanting to achieve. So really happy with that color. I think the pre-shading and the mix of colors gives it a lot of color variance. If you kind of look in some places, you can see some of the red kind of shining through. So really happy with that. So final part is I need to add the decals, but before I had the decals, I want to do some weathering. And I think I'm mostly going to do some dry pastels. If you're not familiar, you can get dry pastels at some of your local hobby shops. They're kind of these chalky like sticks. And just I have some sandpaper here. You can see the many colors I have. I just grind up some on the sandpaper. I have several different old paintbrushes depending on what I'm wanting to do. If you look right here, you can see where I'm starting to add in the dark area in between on the engine nozzle back here, and a little bit on these vents. I'm starting to add it. I don't want to go too heavy. I just want to give it a little bit of that worn look. I can see a little bit where I've just kind of brushed it on here. And that's all I really do is I just put some on my paintbrush. And you can use different applicators, makeup applicators, sometimes Q-tips, I guess. But like right in this spot here, I just want to put a little bit back in there. Now, a lot of times you'll get some kind of brushing off and just blow away the excess. And then I can bring this down to give that kind of blended look in there. So you have quite a bit of control with this, and you can build up in colors. Now, I wanted to do this before I applied a clear coat for the decals. Right now, this paint is a little porous, so it tends to grab this dry pastels a little bit better. It tends to retain that a little bit better. Obviously, I'll put a clear coat once I finish up all this. I'm going to do it in a few different areas. Put the decals on, and we'll be close to being done. All right, well, here's my finished Draconian Marauder from Buck Rogers, the monogram kit. I completed the kit by adding on the decals. We have some kind of skull and bones on each side. Now, the kit comes with 4 decals. There's supposed to be 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. They are very old and fragile. One of them completely came apart. I think I had issues even with these. Some of the longer sections broke apart, and I had to kind of put it next to it to get it on there. But one of them came completely apart, so I wasn't able to put decals on the bottom, which is fine because of the added detail I did. I don't think they would have fit on very good anyway. So I added those on. I used some microsaw and some microset to get those locked into position. I also had these up here. I did a lot of dry pastel work around the recessed areas to darken it up. So very happy with the color, the modulation we have going on, the contrast. Really like how the color came out. Once I finished with all the pastels and the decals, I did do a clear coat with Vallejo's Mecha Collection matte varnish. And I like this product a lot for toning the paint down. And it does a good job of giving you a nice flat finish on the model. If you kind of look at the bottom detail, really happy with how that came out. Those 3D printed parts and greeblies that I added, I think did a good job of detailing the bottom and giving it a nice look. Down here you can see our controller. This is for our weapons. That's going to control our strobing effect and of course our 9-volt battery. So we have that all placed into there. So we'll cut this on and we get a nice red glow in our cockpit. You can see our weapons strobing and firing. And I think that has a nice effect. and the engine light. Now the engine light didn't come out as bright as I wanted, but it is what it is at this point. It's not bad, it's just I wish it would have been a little bit brighter, but it's just really hard to get a nice bright effect out of these little openings. So anyway, pretty happy with how that came out, with all the extra detailing. Really happy with how the cockpit area came out. I think that really, of all the extra work, I think closing this in really helps the model look a lot better. I'll put this aside, and here is my Buck Rogers Thunderfighter. So now I have the pair, or the set. You can see here. Glad to have these to my collection. And I hope you've enjoyed the video. Until next time, everybody have a good one.